Hi, I'm going to give people a moment to get on, but welcome to Learn to Communicate with Animals with Joan, if you're new to the page. And this is going to be an amazing week, this masterclass and today specifically, of death is not the end of the relationship with your beloved animals. And so I'm going to give it a couple of minutes here. Are people getting on, Claudia?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're new to me, my name is Joan Ranquette. I'm an animal communicator, an author, a speaker, and a TEDx speaker, and founder of Communication with All Life University. And my program is in its 10th year. So it's the 10-year anniversary. I've been teaching for about since 1998, so that's 21 years, and I've been an animal communicator for over 25 years, and energy healer. So I've done a lot of different things with animals for the last basically 30 years, and I'm really happy to be here and to share a lot of this experience. These experiences with you to help you be able to share these experiences with others. And I always like to mention my mission, because I think it's important for you to know, because you're now part of my mission and I hope I'm part of yours. But my mission, I've been saying this for years and years and years, and it's next to my desk. My mission is to empower others to deeply connect with all life so that together we can give voice to those who can't speak for themselves, and ultimately will heal the planet. And so this year I put a number on it that I wanted to help 1 million animals and their people. And so I can't do this alone, and that's why I started this group and got this whole thing going, and I'm trying to teach as much as I can in so many ways, and I have lots of bigger ways to learn with me, but we're starting here. Is anyone on?
Yeah, we've got a few people, actually, quite a few. Carrie says hi. Cindy Coleman.
Hi.
Cindy Gans Turner. Colette. I'm not going to even try to pronounce your last name, Colette, but she says thank you so much for this class. Sarah Holden says she's so excited to be here. Michelle Schulman. Carol Kurtz Darlington, so thankful.
Hi, Michelle.
Anne Ashenfelter. Hi, I appreciate this class. Thank you. Hi, Allie Isaacs. She's saying hi to both of us.
Hi, Allie.
Irene Cousin-Haas. Leslie Williams. Michelle Schumann says hi. Stephen Arnold. I'm so thankful to be here. Yeah, we've got Gianna Gore, Lorraine, Heather Barton. Okay, so that reminds
awesome.
me.
Okay.
I'd like to just say that we're going to try to get to as many questions as we can, but if we try to answer all the questions, then that's going to take up the whole class. So if we don't get to your question, you could post a question on the page and tag it, put the hashtag question, or you can email assist@joanranquette.com with your question. Again, we'll try to get to as many questions as we can. If you don't get the answer you're looking for, you can post on the page or email us. Okay, that's it. You can continue.
Of course, when I'm taking a sip.
Sorry.
That's all right. And one thing that, if you've been on these before with me, you'll notice that Claudia's changed the set a little around. I'm not so close to the bookshelf because we just had the gnarliest earthquake ever last week. So thank you, Claudia, for keeping me safe.
Yeah, it was cats and books falling on you.
Yeah, no cats and books falling on me. It was a doozy. Anyway, so we're all a little
shaken up.
Yeah, shaken up. Shaken up. Yeah, I couldn't even walk across my kitchen. It was that big. But anyway, we're not here to talk about earthquakes. We're here to talk about our animals that have crossed. And, you know, one of the things that's so cool in this group is how many of you have already started posting about your beloveds. And I'll tell you, I think someone even wrote that they started to feel like there was a whole healing that was happening in there for them, just because they were around, you know, we're able to share, we're able to truly express, and we're able to really are in a like-minded community. And I can't tell you how important that is because, you know, there are so many times, I talk about this in my TEDx talk, that there are so many times that, you know, people feel really isolated with their grief because they don't, they, you know, somebody might say, okay, that was just a cat jumping, that was not an earthquake. Cat jumping from the top of the tree to the top of the bookshelf. Anyway, but so many people feel isolated by their grief and have, you know, maybe they go to work and somebody's like, well, it's just a dog, or you can get another one. And it's like, no, this was my family member. And so we're really here to honor our family members in the best way that we can. And, you know, we've kind of run out of, we don't have a lot of ways that we memorialize animals, and we're going to talk about that today, because we don't. It's getting wild over here with the cats. Anyway. So it's important for us to be able to really focus on this, and you know what? I'll tell you why it's so important for us to focus. First of all, grief is, if we don't address it, it doesn't just go away, right? It stays with us for a really long time, and it gets hidden. And because we weren't encouraged as kids, maybe even, to grieve in this way, I don't know what Henry's doing, but he's full. I think he got into the catnip right before class, so could get a little crazy around here. Anyway, what happens is we have almost like a giant savings account of grief. We have, if we aren't attending to our grief, which we're not taught to as children, right? We have all these losses, and they build up and they build up and they build up and they build up. And then on top of it all, our animals represent something completely different in that way. They are something that is, often we have a sacred relationship with them because it's our safe place to have the type of relationship that we will never have with people. It's a love that's so deep and so profound and so, you know, the word love is too small of a word to contain what happens, what gets expressed, what is the nature of our relationship with animals. And often they've been they've helped us through big, huge experiences that that no other person could do with us. And part of it is then we don't have to have words with them, right? We don't, and I say in my my TEDx talk, they're never gonna grow up and marry a jerk. You know what I mean? So it's like that we have these really pure and clean and important and hi. Speaking of pure and clean and important, here's Buster Keaton. He just dropped by to say hi for a minute. And I mean, like, when I just look into his eyes, I could get mesmerized, right? Because you're just so handsome. So we have these relationships with our beloveds that are so profound, and to lose that is like the world just went dark. And then to not have an ability to express that. So, we have the buildup of those. Buster Keaton says, hi. We have the buildup of those our whole life. So as each animal dies, it unhinges something in us that we don't even have a grounding. We don't have an answer. We don't have a way of even getting through that. Is that making sense to everybody?
Yeah. So Tony Ann says, people don't understand. I can't tell how much this means to me. The grief is so hard. He was my life. Okay, I'm going to start crying. So
yeah. I've got Kleenex. I don't know about you, but I've got, do you need some Kleenex, Claudia?
Yeah, I'll take one just in case. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. I'm telling you, I think it's, So, when we push away this grief, it expands. And it's already expansive because we didn't know, we had no tools. We've had no tools. So, we're gonna walk through that. And another thing that happens a lot too is that we kind of pre-grieve, right? Like we see our animals start to dwindle, and we think, oh my God, got Buster Keaton cat hair everywhere. Oh my God, that's the end, and it reminds us of the end of the other animal. Like, oh, when they start to lose their hips, it's going to be all downhill, just like the other one. So we go, we make crazy assessments based on the last loss, because we haven't really processed it. So then we're starting to project onto somebody who maybe just their hips hurt, right? Or maybe it is going to be a long dwindle, but it doesn't mean it has to be the end, and it doesn't have to be horrible, and it doesn't have to be a lot of other stuff. And then I want to, we're going to shift the focus here in a second on some things about our animal companions. But one thing I wanted to bring up is that, the planet right now needs you. Humanity needs you. The animals need you. And if you can roll your sleeves up and just lean into some of this grief and be with it in a way, you're going to be so much stronger. And when you're stronger, you're going to be more able to help someone else. And we all need to help each other right now, because we're living in a tough time. In some ways, life is so cushy. Really, we have a lot to be thankful for, but we're facing some big things on the planet, and being able to face it with grace and strength and humor and love is probably one of the biggest gifts you can give to the planet right now. How can we give back? Well, let's face our worst thing. And when I think about what, it's easy to project out there like, oh, I wish there was world peace, but I have to be world peace, right? So we can do our work here and know that this work we're doing now here is the work that needs to be done to make a more peaceful, joyful, buoyant planet, and hopefully, get some trees planted. And I don't know how we make icebergs and put those back, but we got some work to do, and refill the oceans with whales and fish. But anyway, what are people?
So Lorraine Bollinger says, talk about rolling up your sleeves. She says, it took weeks to decide to face up to my grief to take this.
Thank you for taking it.
And Michelle Shell says, oh my God, yes, I went through the pre-grieving. Then also, if you have to make the decision to end their life, that's a whole other issue.
Yeah.
Even if it's the best for them.
Yeah.
Still feels awful. Yeah.
And it's horrible to play God in that way. And we'll get to that for sure this week. That'll be part of what we talk about. Anyone else?
Mary Pat Schofield says, I had some energy work done and cut the huge cord attached to my Bentley. It wasn't to cut him out or off, but to accelerate the grief process. It worked. She said then she started finding feathers from Bentley, and it literally 2 hearts in the dirt by his burial spot. My house felt full and peaceful, not empty and lonely, which is what we do here.
Yeah. And that's funny because I have a whole bunch of, after Raleigh died, my horse, right here, found a series of, there's a bunch over there, of heart rocks everywhere I went. And I still find them and I leave them, but this one was just so beautiful. Literally, it was the day after he died.
That's beautiful.
So, here's another one. Yeah, anyway, I got a pile. But one that reminds me of, my sister died in 1986, and I was so again, there was no handbook. Nobody knew how to do this correctly. And so I was pretty lost, and I was really searching for things. And um, I had been living in New York, and she got sick, so I moved back to Seattle. It was right before I moved to LA, so it was an in-between time in Seattle. And so I'd been there with my family, and that was just nothing short of depressing. And because nobody knew how to do this thing called grief. So I went to Seattle's famous for its coffee shops. There's an area in Seattle called Capitol Hill, and so I was in a coffee shop on a really rainy, depressing, oh my God, depressing day. And there was this sort of like leprechaun dude that also kind of looked like, he could have been a logger. It's somewhere between a leprechaun and a logger. Over in the corner. And you'd think I'm joking, right? I mean, with the little hat, right? Anyway. So he was over in the corner doing tarot card readings during the day on this gross, rainy, depressing day. So I thought, well, no, it's as good a time as any to get my tarot cards read. And I actually, at that point, was reading tarot cards in a play. So I knew the cards I was doing a play in Seattle. And I was playing a tarot card reader. So I was kind of getting to know the cards anyway. So anyway, he laid out the deck, laid out my cards. And of course I had all those, with the 19 swords in the back, or off to sea with swords by myself, just these horrible cards. And at some point he said, these aren't horrible if you're looking at the fact that it is going to hurt. And he said, grief, and this is my favorite thing I've ever heard from the mouth of a leprechaun. He said, grief is the process of separating, and as you're separating, all the love you gave, and in this case to my sister, all the love you gave to your sister is coming back to you, and all the love that your sister gave to you is going back to her. It's going back to where it belongs. And so that's the part that hurts, is that separation. But it's also incredible when you sit in that grief, because there's so much beauty, and there is all this love that comes flooding back to you. And the minute that you start to process it, you're making openings for more connection and relationship to continue. And it's just kind of the proof that the body is only the vessel for the beginning of the relationship as we know it as these beings, but it can still carry on. And so that's an important reminder that that separation is what hurts, but all the love just comes flooding back. Any comments, questions?
Yeah, so here she is. Okay, Juta Ranamaki. I hope I said that right.
Awesome.
She said, "Great, Joan, that you talk about this. I help animals cross over and help their human friends with their grief during the process. This is an area people need lots of help with. Losing an animal friend is devastating." Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
She said, Irene Kuzenha says, "Joan, now you're making me cry. So beautiful." Yeah, I never heard that story. That got to me.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing way to look at grief, because I always think that when we have let's take that earthquake the other night, right? Here it was 8:00. I'm making dinner. I'm on the speakerphone with a bunch of friends in Seattle. They're all laughing and talking, and all of a sudden I'm like, "Hey guys, wait, stop!" And of course, one of the guys is truly one of the best comedians up there. So he's just ripping through jokes, and I'm like, Okay, shut up. I'm in an earthquake. And when you have an emergency, you're never so alive, right? And then the next thing you know, the big phone tree happens. Like you check on your friends in Pasadena. I called Claudia. Like half her pool is in her house. You start, everybody's starting to call me. Like people are texting from around the world. You're really alive. When you're in an emergency, you're really alive. When you have a near-death experience, when you almost have a car accident, when you get a diagnosis, you are more alive than you ever were. And you remember things like, I just taught tapping in Boston at the summer camp. We did a summer camp of animal communication, EFT, and death and dying. But in the EFT class, I always start with an experience that's kind of triggering and has basically haunted us with our animals. And it's amazing how you can maybe not remember what you did yesterday when you drove to the grocery store, but when you have an emergency, you can remember what you were wearing, you can remember all the visceral details. And for me, like, I look at the experience of death and I think, when we're going through this with our animals, like, I can remember lying on the floor with Olivia and pretty much what outfits I was wearing, which became a uniform that I wore every day. So it's like we can remember these details and we're very alive in a way that we're not the rest of the time. And so in many ways, I want us to think about, even if there isn't something going on with one of our beloveds right now, how can we be totally alive with them now, right? Because death is never going away. None of us are getting out of here alive. So for me, this subject is the most enlivening, really, really, truly enlivening subject there is, because it's that constant reminder to be completely present. And in my TEDx talk, what I talk about all the time is what I talk about in there, and starting to talk about in a new book is what I call Preciousville. And Preciousville is that time where you are recognizing how precious everything is, because it could go away in a minute. And precious to me is like, Preciousville is like a combination of sacred, it's a combination of being really present, and it's a combination of just really noticing. And when in my TEDx talk, I talk about how I had, my parents had been dead for a little while, and I was like, wow, nobody's dying. Like, I finally was feeling relief from the grief. And all of a sudden I realized that I had 10 animals and somebody was going to die. And so the whole talk is about that, and just, kind of looking around going, uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. And then inevitably somebody did. But but I created Preciousville at that point, at that moment in time, when I was like, I'm not grieving anybody right now. And what I've got is so fantastic. And I really need to be in this as best I can. And so, so that's something we can be doing with the animals that are still in our homes and in our care. But what I really want to do now is kind of, and I want to know if anybody's relating to Preciousville.
So, you got to give it a minute. But Tony Ann said she wants to talk about the separation, and her thing is, did she put him down at the wrong time? And I know that that's something that you bring up in your TED Talk.
Yeah, I don't think anybody can do... I mean, I think that everybody dies the moment they're supposed to. Exactly the moment they're supposed to. I think we have windows of opportunity for that. Like, I could have gone that minute, or wow, I went down to that airplane and I'm still here. A small plane crash. And I love flying. But anyway... yeah, I think there's a bunch of moments that we could do something, but the moment that it finally lands is the moment it's supposed to land. So you couldn't have put your dog down too early. For whatever reason, that was the moment that the bigger contract was assigned. Yeah.
And then Janine Bratt says that alive can be exhausting though, like being present and alive, or is that just all the emotions?
I think it's all the emotions. It's really being alive, and so then maybe you have to pace yourself. Maybe there's a new way to be in that alive. You know, maybe you have to ground yourself because I can imagine if you're not used, if we're used to just sort of, ho-de-do, just gonna be alive. Then being alive would be really wow. So it's, I think it's really important that we recognize how much energy that does take and to pace yourself and to know that it's a real cost to our physical system to hold it all down.
And Nina People says that she thought she was prepared when her 17-year-old cat was ready to cross over, but when it happened, she totally lost it. Which,
yeah, I always say it's not a shock, but it's certainly it's never when you have that long period of dying. It's not a shock, but it's certainly a surprise. You know what I mean? Like you're not prepared for that person or animal to not be there. How can you prepare? I actually practiced once not calling my mother one day when in the 5 years that she was sick, and I just thought, oh my God, this is awful. It's awful. And I don't even think I made it the whole day. And what I wouldn't do to be able to call her today,
Michelle Shell says, she says that since her dog passed 11 days ago, she finds herself being so present in every moment with her other animals.
That's awesome.
And Carlette Delange says, Preciousville is living in gratitude.
Yeah. Oh, gratitude's the other word. Yes, thank you. You know what? That's funny you say that. That is absolutely, it's like sacred, presence, and gratitude. It's like those three.
Carrie Reynolds says that last part was wow. Cody knows I have to grieve the recent loss of my parents first before he leaves, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Karen Olson says, I experienced Preciousville as a suspension of time and space, pure magic. There is no separation. Heaven is right here.
Yes, I agree. 100%. I love this. You guys may all end up in my new book.
Julie Jacobs says, absolutely Preciousville. After unexpectedly losing Lulu and the long battle with my dad's health, every minute is very precious as you never know when you will be stripped of that. With Jez and her illness, I make it a point to spend extra special quality playtime with her every day.
That's great, Julie.
Diane De Jesus says, I wasn't ready for that, and her dog died 15 days ago on his way in surgery, and she says, I wasn't ready for that, and I feel guilty for taking him for that surgery.
You know what, though? I mean, you don't know. Maybe that was the weird answer to how do you... we're going to talk about the state of grace in a day or so, and I can't remember where it is on the schedule this week, because I'm just so present. But we're going to talk a lot about that, and sometimes something like dying on the table is it just lets everybody off the hook, right? You didn't have to euthanize, you didn't have to make that decision. The body couldn't keep going even if the mind wanted to. I just think that sometimes those are bizarre, just bizarre. The only way that somebody is going to leave, just because when we get into the state of grace, you'll see what I'm talking about. But okay, what's that?
Yeah, Cindy Coleman said that her dog died during surgery too, and she feels the same way. Irene Cousin-Haas says Preciousville and Presentville.
Yeah. Okay. I want to do a little exercise because all of us have lost somebody, and especially it sounds like there's a lot of people with some recent losses or some memories of of this, and part of this idea of rolling up our sleeves, right, is that we are that grief, while it may be crushing, isn't a weakness, that it's actually a strength. And one of the things that happens when we really center with this and are really present with it is we are able to things don't affect us the way that they would. Like, for example, I have a personal project that I'm going through, and I think it's ironic that it's corresponding with this and with writing a book about this subject. I kind of dedicate like a few hours a day to writing and a couple hours to my personal project. And my personal project is that I'm going through a lot of the photos. Somehow I ended up with a lot of my dead parents and my dead sister's stuff. So like I have pictures of my sister's friends that I feel I can get rid of, except a couple of you are in here. But I have, and so you're forever in my house. But there are things that I don't need to, keep. But that's really hard, right? But what I've noticed, because I've done a lot of work, is that I pick up pictures and just laugh, right? And maybe 10 years ago I could still be sad about my sister, or she's been dead 33 years, but 33 years this December. But it's still like, even 10 years ago or 15 years ago, it still ached in my heart. And now I feel such a joy, like, oh my God, I remember this moment, or that moment with her horse, or she was afraid of that horse, but she got this horse, or, you know what I mean? Like, going through these things aren't wrecking me. And the same with even Pet One and Pony Boy, right? Like, I feel a certain strength from my experience with them. And part of that, like, I feel really, really, really strong because of my relationship with, say, Olivia. All of my animals now have strengthened me. And it doesn't, I mean, if something happened to somebody right now, of course, that would be a whole different thing. But it's not the big hole that it once was. And so part of, I think, doing that is remembering who they were before they got sick, and how we can really be in that space and finding that joy again. And so I want us to just take a moment of really being with our beloveds again. And who are you going to pick, Claudia?
You had to put me on the spot, didn't you?
Yeah.
Animals?
Mm-hmm. Or whoever you want. You pick who you want. But my point of
my
this...
dad.
Okay. The point of this is that when we get to touching that place within ourselves, we find deep-seated love. And we find deep-seated, unbelievable reserves of love and joy. And we spend so much time remembering those last moments, or the horror of it, or the grief of it, that finding the joy again is really, really necessary for us to be able to kind of like soldier on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is anybody saying anything before we get started?
Yeah, I was going to respond to someone, to Roseanne Greco, that they want to get in touch with animals that have passed, so I'll take care of that.
Okay.
Yeah. I will let you know, the people that want to get in touch with their past animals, how that's possible. We'll put something up on the page.
Okay. Good. All right. Okay. So let's take a deep breath. And if you can, feel into the bottom of your feet. And really breathe for a moment. you to open your heart. And allow your heart to get more open and bigger. And I want you to place your friend there, whether it's your animal companion or your family member, human, animal. And I want you to really be with some of the first memories of this person or animal. What are some of the most favorite things that you can think of about them in the very beginning? What filled you with joy about them? How does that make you feel now? What made you laugh out loud with them? What made you curious about them? What brought you peace? In your mind's eye, I want you to just feel like you can think of right this minute 3 favorite things about them. And then I want you to pick one of those to focus on and put that back in your heart. And I want you to feel almost as if your whole heart is smiling so big that it takes over your whole body. And now I want you to just let that joy fill your body, every cell, every ounce of your being. And when you feel ready, go ahead and open your eyes. How was that, Claudia?
I actually ended up switching like last minute to my Chihuahua that died in '94.
Wow.
He was my firstborn, I say. And my kids will refer to them.
Oh my
him as
God, that's
their
so
older
funny.
brother. So it was amazing. I actually was laughing at a couple of things he used to do.
I don't know how I landed on Isabella, and it just, oh my God, she just made me laugh and laugh and laugh. Any comments from anybody?
Ruth Curry says, thank you, beautiful. Thank you. Pat Ayala says, I can't do this exercise without bawling. Trying to do happy images with tears flowing is tough. What now?
You know what? One of the things that I'm really writing about is that we have to learn to recognize all of our different tears. Sometimes we have tears of joy. Sometimes we have tears because we're so moved. Like, I don't really like sports that much. I could care less, but I could cry that the U.S. women's team won, right? Like, because I know, like, I'm moved by that. So you might recognize that you have sadness and joy, and it doesn't mean that you have to, that they're separate, right? You might be having both, and it might be just a really great expression right now for you to be releasing in that way, because you're going to make more room for the joy.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying that they couldn't do it because they were crying uncontrollably, but that's
part of this release. Yeah, and I think just keep coming back to this. I mean, the thing is we can miss them, but unfortunately we get into a really, we get into that end. We get into what happened and the tragedy, and there was so much more in the relationship than that ending. What else are people saying?
Lorraine Bollinger says, tears feel like part of the process. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And Cindy Gans Turner says she's 65 and has had lots of animals, so many losses, and her heart has lots of work to do.
There's a lot of heart smiling to do, Cindy.
Astrid Prey says, wonderful, tears flowing. I feel so full of joy. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think the tears are great.
Yeah, Mary Pat Schofield says, tears are cleansing. It's a good release. Karen Olson, this is the part that got me, I'm going to start crying. She says, it helps me to know that just by thinking of my loved ones brings them so very close.
Yeah.
I actually smelled my dog. That's one of the things I loved about him.
We're going to keep doing this all week. This is where we are. You know?
Janine Bratt says, I loved remembering what made me laugh with my boy. What a great memory for me.
Yeah, because those get buried and all we think about is the sadness. And there's you had a lifetime with that dog or cat or horse or guinea pig or ferret or cockatoo or sibling or parent or friend.
So Carletta DeLonge says, heart smiling sounds like a good book title.
Oh.
Kim Derby says, I had tears flowing down my face, but I was smiling so big it hurt. I hadn't thought about my boy Paxton like that in forever. Where'd it go? It felt amazing.
Yeah, Kim, thank you. Because I know that, like, it hurts, but it hurts so good. You know what I mean? Like, it's that finding, that joy is buried in there just as much as all the other feelings that we're shoving down.
And Stephen Arnold had the same thing I did. He smelled his cat too, briefly, but very sweet.
I love that.
Mary Walsh says, my animals have all taught me so much. I cry, any tears, sorrow, joy, guilt, pride.
Yeah, good.
Pat Ayala says, she understands what you're saying, but the grief is so actually loud sobbing. Guess I need practice.
No, keep sobbing. I mean, I think it's really good. And you're in a safe place. I'm glad that you all feel safe enough to share that it's this big for you still. It doesn't mean you're going to get somewhere. You get to be with it.
This is a big one. Lauren wants to know, why is it easier to get over my people than it is for my animals?
Well, I think it goes back to the idea that it's that purity of spirit, right? Like our animals have, like I say, they're not going to go marry an asshole, right? They're not going to, they're not doing the things that you know, people have their own agenda, people have their own stuff. People, you know, our relationships with them are often based on a need for something, and our animals just love us. And we don't have that in many other places,
It's
especially with
unconditional.
the way the world goes. Oh, I don't know if it's unconditional. I know it's conditional.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. They like me more when I feed them. It's true.
That is true.
There's nothing unconditional about Queen Latifah,
No, that's true.
right?
That is true.
I don't buy that myth that they love us unconditionally. I think it's completely conditional, and I'll take it.
Yeah. Tony Ann Ventrella says that she remembered the way Omar looked into her eyes, which warmed her heart.
Mm.
Yeah. Lauren Bollinger is laughing, and so is Roseanne Greco. So.
And so I want to talk about something also for those especially that are really crying hard and really in it. I really resisted doing this, but I made a memorial. And first of all, when my horse Raleigh died, my friend sent me this, and it looks just like him. And so this sits up on my desk and up on my shelf, and I always think, oh my God, Raleigh gets to come to work with me. He is in my office. He's watching me. So that's one way to memorialize. My whole house is pictures of my animals, but I made these boxes. This was a box that was given to me, a photo box. And what I love about this box, so this is Alexandria. She's my beloved and just the best cat on the planet. And of course it's dusty, and there's cat hair, weird. But in it is her favorite mermaid catnip toy that somebody brought her once, and then when it was out of catnip, that same friend dropped by and I would always bring my dog stuff, and she stood on the counter like, this needs more catnip. Okay, people? And then she was such a badass hunter that she didn't have one, she had 2 bells. And then of course I have her little tag. So, you know, that was how I memorialized her. Raleigh and I were great partners. This is really dark, but we loved dressage. So
Here, I'll bring it in so people could see it.
So I had his name tag from some fancy barn we were in.
Okay.
And then Olivia, she loved bling. Okay? And so I put, we made it to California. And so she had lived with me in Denver, Seattle, Florida, and California. So I have a picture of the last state we got to, her paw print, and then her bling. So all of these things, you know, it's like, I think that making a little box with their things is so important. And then Isabella, she was something else. And she, now Delilah's coming over to check all this out. So she was...
She knows you're talking about that.
I know.
Here, I'll hold it.
So in there is, right before she, right after she died, a gal who is in the big program from Dubai brought her name in Arabic, and then somebody else didn't know that she had bouts of blindness and sent me her name in Braille.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So all these little things, and this was her collar, of course. So all these things just have a really cool significance for me. And now I'm completely filled with cat hair and dust because I pulled these off the wall. So these are on the wall. I guess the house cleaner will have to go behind the scenes of all the things on the wall. Anyway, so these sorts of things are really, really important for just, you know, like I chose pictures where we are in our joy. Isabella was in her joy for sure. just being out. Olivia was in her joy at the beach. Raleigh and I were in our joy doing dressage. And then Alexandria was just always in her joy running the household from a pillow. So these are all, I picked their joy photos and their joy things. Here's my little Raleigh.
Irene Cousinhouse says, no outfit complete without cat or dog fur.
Exactly. And there's hay in my bra, FYI, always.
Lorraine Bollinger says she paints pet portraits usually animals that have passed, and she says she thinks they help her because their people always say she caught their spirit. And I replied, I think you're an animal communicator.
Yeah, exactly. And that's definitely something that we should share in the group, is like, because that I'm sure there's a lot of people that would love that.
I would love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Roseanne Greco says, it's funny, my cat is sitting in front of you with me, listening to everything you're saying. She's literally watching you on the screen.
Hello. I'm 5 planets in Leo, so fully cat. Half border collie, half thoroughbred, fully cat.
Renee Barnes says, I love the idea of a memory box. I love that too. That's brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't find one to put all their toys in like I did, so then I just put the pretty things in there that really touched me. Yeah. And then I think the final, you're going to have some homework here. No classes without homework. And I want you guys to really, especially those that were really, really, really so touched and moved, and it really struck a chord with the grief. And I hope some of you are starting to come back around, and maybe you could let us know that you're breathing without inconsolable tears. So I want you to really think about writing a love letter to your beloved, so that in this love letter you're able to go through, maybe you talk about the end, but you can also really talk about their whole life, because their whole life was without that. I mean, sometimes we have those animals that were sickly throughout their life, but there were still bouts of joy, and and a reason that you went through that with them. So really honoring that and taking this time to have a big fat love letter to your beloveds is going to be your homework.
Okay, so Irene Cousin-Cass, which is one of the ones that was crying unconsolably, she also started laughing about, she's the one, the one that said that no outfit is complete without dog fur and cats, which reminds me of one of the things that happened in class, which is the crying hard and the laughing.
Yeah, we laughed so hard in the Animals in Transition class.
Yeah, she's feeling better, and then Wilma Mahoney says she's feeling a little bit better, thank you.
Oh, good.
Sarah Holden says she loves the idea of love letters. I've done that with all the animals that have passed. It helped greatly.
Yeah, and if you guys want to post, you could put your love letter in the group, #love letter, and that way, because one of the things that's so profound is how much you guys are sharing pictures and the stories, and I think that it's really I think sharing the joy is so important.
Roseanne Greco says, tears came to my eyes for the first time when you said to write a love letter. Very hard.
And we'll have guidelines. It won't be like you're just out there like adrift. There's a sheet. I think it's going to be posted in the group, or if not, if you've signed up, maybe you're going to get boy, Raleigh needs some grooming.
Yeah, Sue Harris says, I did plenty of ugly crying myself, but then lots of great joy.
Good.
I was right there with her.
Yeah.
And Bernadette Sector says, thank you, Joan, for all you do and how you share and teach us. I've been waiting and praying for someone like you for 20 years, and now you are here for all of us and the world. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to absorb every single word you share with us. You are a blessing. We need you to guide us.
Well, thank you. And Bernadette is an amazing veterinarian, holistic vet. So if you live in New Jersey, but south, more like almost, maybe you could say where you live. So if you need a wonderful vet, she's the one.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah.
Lorraine Bollinger says, "Dang, I'm trying to paint and listen. Now I can't see through the waterworks."
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
And maybe your painting will be your love letter. Maybe you could share that with us. Yeah, I do too. Yeah, and then maybe words aren't easy for people. I mean, we're going to have guidelines, so words that aren't easy for people will come more naturally. But, you know, it might be some other form of expression. I mean, I can't paint to save my life. I can't even draw. My stick figures suck. So that's why, but I take pictures almost every day of my life. I take 10 million pictures. So for me, choosing that perfect photo that expresses their joy or their essence, like, you know, Alexandria was the one that taught the border collie how to run the house. So her sitting on, you know, her pillow is exactly how it should be.
Richie Gupta says, "My heart is way lighter, remembering all the good times I spent with my animals."
Yeah, good. All of this is meant to make our heart lighter, right? Like the more we get through this, and if it's going to be an ugly cry week, well then just warn your friends, warn your coworkers, because at least we can do this together, right?
Yeah.
Where are we on time?
We're wrapping it up. It's
Okay.
we have 5 minutes
We're
left.
wrapping it up. Okay. See, I could go on and on and
Producer
on.
hat.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever. Yeah, we have 4 minutes left.
Okay, so, well, I really am grateful that you guys are here. I think this is profound, what we're doing. We will keep going all week. I'm hoping that you'll share your love letter if you feel like you can, or even just a paragraph from it. And, you know, really have that good cry or 5. And I want you to come back tomorrow because we're going to do more fun work. And, you know, I think that it's easy to say that this is hard, but I'll tell you, you know, every fall I teach animal communication, animals in transition, death, dying, and beyond. So we do a lot of this stuff. And then energy healing for animals. And by far, my favorite class to teach is animals in transition, death, dying, and beyond. I love the subject so much that just because I think it's so rich. I love energy healing. Don't get me wrong. I wrote a book about it. But this is so rich and so needed that not only am I doing this, but I'm writing a book about it, and I'm making a documentary. Like, we shot a bunch of stuff at the class last fall. I've got footage of interviewing people at the Sheldrick Trust about what the rituals are for elephants to die and to grieve. I'm getting more footage before we start, you know, wrapping that up. But to me, it's always facing death keeps us alive. Always just looking at it, looking at our grief, looking at, you know, the losses is, you know, makes the fun. So it makes this super important to experience, to release, and to share. So I can't thank you enough for being part of this, and Raleigh says thank you also.
And just a reminder for those of you who couldn't watch this whole thing or can't be here one of the days, this is going to stay in the group, the recordings, the lives, so you can always go back if you missed one and watch it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And I'll see you tomorrow, same time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.